Okay, my wonderful friends, before we get too deep into this, for those of you that don't know about my research, let me just tell you what happened. I discovered mud fossils. These are some mud fossils right here. And we have new species. Actually, I believe this is a new human ancestor that had no toes. This is a foot from one, built right into it. And they became stone because of a great flood, which was hot water. Hot water. It boiled the flesh off the bodies and left lungs, feet, and so forth that were well protected in certain areas. Now, some areas they just completely destroyed. But you see the flat spot on all of these. This lung has been DNA tested. It's human. It's a human lung. They say, oh, no, lung can't turn into stone. It absolutely can. So can bones. That was a bone. It's not a bone anymore. The only last bit of bone left in it is that little spot right there, that little tiny white spot. I'm not kidding you. And I understand fully the process now. It's nucleophilic substitution. Anything can turn into stone, even a goose's head and his feathers, everything, in this particular situation of a hot water flood, which Velikovsky described. 100%, and the whole world described, not just Velikovsky. It was in all of the ancient texts, in all of the glyphs, scrolls, papyruses, carvings, statues. They all depicted this event. And it was all 1,500 years before the new millennia, which is 3,500 years ago. Now, this is his throat, and the tissue turns into basalts and other types of rock names that they give it. But all it is feldspar is the coating. This is feldspar, this is feldspar, this is feldspar. Feldspar coats this. But inside, they're all some other form of stone. But anyway, I was so upset by the refusal by academia to even look at it, and they still, to this very day, now I haven't had one single question and nobody's taken any account of it other than the people that are on my channels. So this is 6-7 years ago, I wrote this book, Mud Fossils, Velikovsky, and Minds in Collision. He wrote Worlds in Collision, which was a bestseller, 11 weeks in top of the list, mega bestseller in history. And they forced him to take it off the bookshelves, academia, because they didn't like what he was saying. Just like mine, they can stop me from saying it, and they have. So all I have is the people that are on my channel, and they're not spreading the word fast enough. It's just sort of stagnating. You know, some people see it, that's fine. But anyway, let's get into Velikovsky and what he did have to say about Venus and Jupiter and mythology and all the things. I got to be honest with you, and I'm not bragging, because if it's true, it ain't bragging, and this is true. I know more about this and Velikovsky's research and the ancient history and the mythology and all of these ancient writers, and put them all in different pieces and stack them together like a puzzle. And I understand this as well as anyone. And anybody wants to confront me about it, I will. Because it changes history in so many ways. Nobody ever expected the things that have been discovered as a result of mud fossils. That's why I was so upset. I'm still, what can you say? You got to be upset. Nobody will pay attention to reality. That's upsetting now. Good morning, my outstanding friends. Another day of just absolutely insane coincidental overlaps. Something is going on in my life. I don't know what it is, but yesterday I did a video on Jupiter, and that it looks like Jupiter is about to literally give birth to a planet. And it did before. It gave birth to Venus. This was all recorded 3,500 years ago. Velikovsky, my hero, did all the research on this and collected all of the written documents, papyruses, carvings, tablets, sculptures, glyphs, inlays, all the museums, everywhere. He collected all of that data from every culture on Earth, basically. And it all said the same story about Jupiter giving birth to Venus as a fiery comet, almost hit Earth. And then actually collided with Mars, destroyed it, killed everything on Mars. And I'm going to show you Mars was exactly identical to Earth before it was killed. Identical. And I'll show you. But what I really want to concentrate on now is how is the solar system constructed? How is even the Milky Way constructed? They realize now everything they thought was wrong. I mean, literally everything. So this pops up first thing in the morning. I just blew my mind because I'm about to show you this is nothing like what it looks like. So then I keep coming down here. Parallax shows up. What is a parallax? That's the same thing. Parallax is part of this. This is just too much. Way too much. Okay, prepare yourself for this because this is just a shocker. The Milky Way's halo of stars isn't the neat sphere astronomers expected it to be. This is just out today. It says step outside the Milky Way for a moment and you notice the bright disk of stars is weird, it's warped, it's so forth, all these things. Now, so as you come down through the article, you get down here to where it says we now know that the textbook picture of our galaxy embedded within a spherical volume of stars has to be thrown out. Absolutely. Check this out. Gaia, which is a telescope they put in orbit, the European Space Agency, orbit around the sun, changes the telescope's position in the solar system, allows it to measure the parallax, which is the thing I just showed you. That's the distance, what things look like from different positions. So they say they can measure the parallax of objects in the Milky Way, obtain the most accurate measurement, calculating the positions and movements of thousands of distant stars. Well, let's talk about our own solar system. The galaxy, that's nice, but the solar system will show us more what the galaxy actually is. And this is where they come into this parallax. Let me show you a parallax of our solar system. Okay, if you really want to get into this, you could look this up. Co-formation of the disk and the stellar halo, this is about how did our solar system start. And what about well, I guess they're going into the whole galaxy, stars in a galactic halo. And then they're talking about it's based on metals and things. I'm telling you right now, they literally have no idea. It says the first attempt to decipher the history of the formation of the disk, the galactic disk, can be found in Egan, Lyndon, Bell, and Sanders. 1962, they started to look into this. And it based on their strong apparent correlations between metallicity of stars. That's how they figured it all started to work out, because the heavy stuff did this, and the light stuff did this, and the this and the that. Well, I'm going to tell you, this is 100% hypothesis. It's a hypothesis. They had no idea how this happened. And this goes back, they're talking about hundreds of billions of years ago this happened, and then 6 years later something else happened. It's absolutely amazing how they come up with these interpretations of what happened so long ago. Now, and this is by some this is a monthly notice of Royal Astronomical Society. So the key thing here is nobody knows. But let's see what we do know. All right, here's the thing that always bothered me about this model of the galaxies. They say these things are moving through space, and that's what forces them to spin. Well, I disagree with that. Now, certainly they're not moving through this way in a flat disk. No. The reason is, because if they were moving this way, yes, that would account for the arms being bent back. But these arms back here would be splayed open. If it's moving this way, all of these arms aren't going to turn this way. The ones in the back are going to be just dragged away. They're not going to be wrapped around this way, so you're never going to get your black hole. It's just going to be an opened up thing. One go this way and one go that way. So you're going to have a bullet coming forward. And that is what you do have. All of that stuff spins behind the bullet that's moving forward. This is what always bothered me. Here's what it actually looks like. Okay, more or less, this is what the reality is. It's not like this, a big flat spinning disk that's going through the solar system. It's like this. Exactly like that. Now, what about all this mess behind the sun? This is what we're spinning around in circles. We're not just a flat plane right around the sun. So just think of what would happen if we had introduced another participant in this cacophony of spinningness coming out of one of these planets, which would be Jupiter, this big one. And then it just mixes in until it finds a way to spin freely, which Venus finally did. Venus is a product of a birth of a planet causing havoc in the solar system. Let's see what Velikovsky says. Okay, my friends, this is something about Velikovsky, who was my hero, and he was a truth teller that was destroyed by academia. It says, maybe some readers recall Immanuel Velikovsky's 1950 mega bestseller, Worlds in Collision. It was a fabulous book, and it was written historical documents, not just his theories. The book, which caused a real sensation at the time, was an attempt to explain many of the big cataclysms and miracles recorded in mythic and folklore narratives of ancient cultures as real astrophysical events. They wrote, here's what happened. He says maybe it was real. He looked at it, and sure enough, it was real. As far as I'm concerned, he was right on the money. Velikovsky's thesis was that narratives of floods, mass destructions, were not just allegorical, metaphorical, but records of events that did take place. Everybody in the world wrote the same story. Obviously, they were records. Mythic and biblical catastrophism had a historic and a scientific value to them. These are all the people that wrote about them because they were scared to death. It was going to happen again, and it did. In Velikovsky's theory, Venus was ejected from Jupiter as kind of a comet sometimes around the 15th century BC. That's 3,500 years ago. That is not long ago. And that is what caused the boiling of the waters on the ocean as it almost hit, really all over the earth, the waters boiled. Not necessarily in all the oceans, but certainly in the small bodies of water and rivers and so forth. It almost hit us. It combusted our atmosphere. It caused the Triassic layers of rock, the red bed, the gray clay, and the black cap. That is what happened after the flood. That's worldwide as well. Now, so Velikovsky said that it is ejected from Jupiter as kind of a comet. It's periodic. Every now and then a passage by Earth caused all sorts of havoc. His mythic inspiration came from the Greek mythology, in particular the fable where Athena, Venus, was ejected from the head of Zeus, who was Jupiter. In spite of its popular appeal, the astronomical community summarily dismissed Velikovsky's ideas. Now let me tell you something, it's not from the head of Jupiter, it was from the vagina of Jupiter. And Jupiter was a male figure god, but they could change their sexes, they could do anything they want. He could become an ant if he wanted Zeus. He could be a fungus. He could become a universe. They had the ability to create themselves into anything they wanted. It's exactly what was written. If you read Apollodorus and Hesiod and Ovid, you will understand this is what they wrote. And these weren't myths. These were facts. I have seen and done the research that backs their stories up very well, and so did Velikovsky. And I have been destroyed. Velikovsky was destroyed. Now, in spite of the popular appeal, the astronomical community destroyed him. A key player was Carl Sagan. He just slammed him. He says, oh, you got a moron, da, 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 da. Well, now I will show you how absolutely certain it is that he was correct. All right, this is completely new to me. I never heard of this guy before. And I don't recommend anything yet, but it sure looks good. And this goes way back to 2007. The end of Eden, the comet that changed civilization. Now, he's talking about basically identical to what Velikovsky said. 1500 BC passed through the tail of the comet, only it was much more violent than that. And then he blames this event on turning civilization's violence. He says, in the year 2024, Comet 12P Brooks is due to pass near Earth again for the first time in 3,500 years. In 1500 BC, Earth passed through this comet's tail. Well, I'm not going with whatever this comet is. I'm saying we almost got hit by Venus, because that's exactly what Velikovsky says. Now, it said in the decade following, cultures the world over began to exhibit significant aggressive tendencies. India, Middle East, China, Japan, Europe, Central America suddenly abandoned their peaceful ways and devoted themselves with uncharacteristic fervor to making war on their neighbors and fighting amongst themselves. And he's blaming it on the appearance of all these substances that were in this comet's tail. He says, in the End of Eden, Graham Phillips chronicles a sudden shift in social demeanor and religious philosophy. They saw a gigantic planet almost hit us. They're going to think, holy smokes. And it was ejected from Jupiter, which is what the ancient myths say, from the feared god Jupiter. They knew these were gods. And Jupiter ejected Venus, which was, and still is, part of this celestial godly domain. So they changed. They said, holy smokes, this is all real. They changed their social demeanor, their religious philosophy, swept the world in the wake of, he's saying it's going to sweep the world here. He argues that there is no other explanation for these changes other than the presence of these massive comets in the sky above Earth. He contends that debris in the comet's tail contaminated the atmosphere with a chemical known to cause aggressive behavior. And after that, a little while more than a decade, worldwide hostility abruptly abated. They just sort of chilled out. He also explores how the appearance of a celestial body outshone the moon, would have been interpreted as a significant religious event. Oh yeah. The premier appearance of a powerful new god to supplant the deities previously worshipped around the world. Yes. This is very, very. I never considered any of this stuff about the chemistry that would be associated to it. Here's what happened. Let me try to explain to you the chronology of the events, and then it will become obvious why they became warlike, and then why they became more passive, and then why they changed their whole society. All right, most everybody knows me for the mud fossil work, and this supports everything, because once I found the mud fossils and how these body parts became stone based on the fact of this great flood, everything could turn to stone, even geese with their feathers and everything. And one side is always flat, and the other side is almost always perfect. And I found them everywhere. I found virtually everywhere. So I wrote a book because I was so upset. This goes back, 6-7 years ago. So 99 cents. I never made a penny on it. I don't want any money from it. I wrote it so I could support Velikovsky. He was the one that knew what he was talking about, and they destroyed him. Literally destroyed his life. Made him take his book off the bookshelves after being #1 on the bestseller list 11 weeks in a row. So I wrote this about it, and here's what I wrote. The discovery of mud fossils a few years ago led on a journey only be described as wild and crazy. The evidence uncovered is discussed in many links to the videos that prove the claims I make. Hundreds of samples eventually completely scrutinized, many scientifically tested a variety of ways. DNA tests, positive for human DNA. 3 tests, contamination was ruled out. All negative controls were in fact negative for the contamination. I extracted the stuff from these huge body parts, sent them off to be tested. They were dense and excellent quality. So, and there's no question. No. Then I had 7 CAT scans done by Jesse Garant and Associates, probably one of the best places in the world. They do work for Rolls-Royce and all the top places. Anyway, they did 7 CAT scans for me, gratis, because they knew what we had here. And sure enough, it showed. It's very hard to see a real big distinct change with CAT scans using mud fossils, because it's invaded. The tissues are completely invaded by another material, and it's called nucleophilic substitution. So sometimes you can just barely see the lines of separation, but they're there if you know how to look. So anyway, I had 7 samples tested, CAT scans. So 7 CAT scans showed exquisite vascular and bone details. I could say that because I could see them. One 50-foot tall giant fingertip and another DNA verified fingertip was from a human who should have been around 200 feet tall. In addition, there was lots of chemistry and lab work. I also recreated the chemical process. I did it myself, and it's easy to do. I am being ignored when not attacked because reality is still not a concern in academia for at least 60 years and has been practices done with Velikovsky's research. Nobody ever looked at it. They just told him he was crazy and destroyed him. The mud fossil specimens I present are physical support for Immanuel Velikovsky's historical masterpiece, 1950. Velikovsky read, studied, and listened. All right, he read, he studied, he listened, he examined. Nobody else works like that in science anymore. You have to say what everybody else says, or they don't let you say it, and then you lose your position. The stories were the same all over the globe about the same events at the same dates observed by many and recorded by eyewitnesses at the time of this gigantic comet almost impacting Earth. We dismiss these recorded historical documents as silly, scary stories, not all rooted in reality. Scary stories, yes. Silly, no. Reality, absolutely. Velikovsky was literally attacked, and that will stop right now. No, it never did. They just ignored it. The academic bullies and book burners are about to be exposed in these pages. Now the fun begins. I wish he was here now. Well, nothing ever happened. They just ignored it. And they can ignore you by just not allowing you to publish anything anywhere. That's what I've been denied, to have access to anyone that can address my claims. I'm making claims that are validated in every single way, and nobody will address them. That's what made me upset. So I want Velikovsky exonerated, and I want me exonerated too. And above all, I want Caesar exonerated. If that's not a goose or some kind of waterfowl or some kind of bird, I don't know what it is. And I've studied this. I know what it is. This is all feldspar. All of these things are coated with feldspar. The bones, they're coated with feldspar. What happened in this hot water flood, with all of the chemistry of blood and mud, which is flesh, boiled up in a certain way, in my condition where I am, it boiled up and all of the fleshy parts boiled away. What was left was bony stuff was still around, yes, but it was already invaded by, like all of these different chemistries that were in the waters, in these boiling waters, salts and acids and blood, and that's what's called nucleophilic substitution. So there was a continuous invasion with water through this stuff until everybody found what it wanted to bind with. And all of the collagens, these are all collagens. All your membranes are made from collagen. Right? Collagen is a certain type of chemistry, and it wants to attract or be attached to aluminum, silicates. All right, those which are moving freely in these waters for a long time. These hot waters, they've been literally boiling them in there for, I don't know, must have cooked them for quite a while. I don't know how hot it actually was, whether they were boiling, or it was just hot enough to be, cooking away at it for a long period of time. But the end result was virtually all the red flesh from where you have thin skin went away. This is a different situation. This is thick stuff. Feathers are thick, and they're heavy. And that's what kept this from boiling the flesh away. And it died laying like this. Now, here's one of the things I had tested. Hold on. This is one of the things I had tested, the DNA from this. And this is a lung, human lung. And this is all the pleura, which is nothing more than collagens, rubbery, gooey collagens that can go all day, every day. And it's, again, flat as a pancake, just like goose. My goose here is Caesar Augustus. All right, same thing, see it? And they all had basically the same thing. They ended up being flat on one side because they just settled, and then all of the waters must have run off. This is the only thing I can think of, is they all died in the flood. So here they are all underwater. Water, 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 water. It's called aqueous nucleophilic substitution, an invasion by electrophiles and neutrophiles and changing their chemistry due to the fact that they were never stable in the first place. You are so unstable right now, you can't even believe it. You will die in 4 minutes if you don't have everything within you transferring, using oxidation to transfer all of these metals and glucose and oxygen and all these different things. Within 4 or 5 minutes, you're dead. So every molecule in you wants to change. Well, when it's laying here in this aqueous solution being cooked and all these particles coming by, sooner or later it finds somebody that can attach to, and then it becomes stable. And that's what. And then when they dried out after the flood, these must. I am on a very big hill, sort of a mountain, and so I assume the waters receded, and these were left high and dry, basically, and dried out, and it just became stone. Everything I have in my whole property is stone. Now, everything I got, I show, and I have shown hundreds of different things in spectacular detail. And they're just lying on my property. I didn't do any real work to do this. Let me show you one other one I had tested, and that was in this DNA test. And it was excellent quality and dense DNA. You want to see how big these creatures were? Well, let me show you. All right, this right here is a fingertip. This was where the fingernail went around like here. This is an apical tuft. An apical tuft is where the tendons lock in. And there's one right in here, and I'll show it to you on the other side, where the pads of your finger, this is a fingertip. All right, this is where the fingernail basically was embedded. The rest is just flesh, and this is all these little holes are where you have vascular entries. Now, the pads are on the bottom. You know what the pads are like on your fingers. They're heavy-duty pads here and there, and this right here is this. All right, this is what's called an apical tuft. All right, this is from a very, very eroded one. I have this whole hand, basically. I'll show it to you. And this was in there. And these balls, if you could see, you can actually see, you see these little straps? They run out from these balls. There's a strap running and attached. Every one of these has a ball. And that is right dead center in this flesh. And that's what allows you to pull and move your fingers around, because all of those little tendons go down. Now, in here, this is the bone. All right, you could see this pretty well in the CAT scan. You could see the impression. I maybe have some shots of that, but anyway, this is a thumb. It's a right-hand thumb, because the bone is offset. See, the bone is here, and you got same thing with your thumb. All your other fingers are right in the center. Thumbs are offset. Now, this one's this way. If it was a left thumb, the bone would be over this side. All right, so now that's where the bone is. And that's where the, what do you call it, your fingernail is. Now I have a bigger one. This one's not even big. It's not even big. All right, this is what a distal phalanges is. If you knew what the bone pattern is, if you can see that black there, that's the distal phalanges, and this is an eroded one. Now, if you could see, and you may not be able to see this, but the bone is in here. That would be, the bone is really right about like this and runs all the way around. This is where you have your red arteries blow out. You see, this is the artery side, and it blows out here, here, and on the end. See, arteries come down, and they blow out because there's no clamps on arteries. Arteries can blow right out like nothing at all. Now, the vein is totally different. Here's the vein. The vein side is clamped off, if you can see that. And that vein side there is clamped off. And that vein at the end is clamped off. The artery's totally different, wide open, and you can see the red blood down in there. You see that one there blew out, this one blew out, and that one. The tubing is still even in here for the vein. You see that little tube? And this black pattern here is the pattern of what they call a distal phalanges. And this was from this same hand. This hand was in totally different states of decay. I have fingers from it that are totally eroded down to the bone ball, and then I have other ones that are just like brand new, and the palm of the hand is there too. Hold on. All right, check this out. This is his hand. It's about, I don't know, I think it was about 4 feet wide. This goes back a long time. This is the palm of the hand. It's a left palm. That little cut right there, that little cleave, is right between the two bumper pads. This silver stuff, remember this is grip skin. Let me come down right into it. You see that's peeling up stuff right there? You see it peeling right off? It's silver, and the rest here is reddish looking. And that right there is a tendon running down, and that's the other side of your soft tissue that runs on the pad of your hand. All this is right up to about here. It's right up to about here. It's not even up. No, this right here is one of the fingers, and it was lying like this. Yeah, it's this hand, and it was lying like this on its back, and this was one of the fingers from it, lying down like this. That's why it's so flat. You see? I tell you, everything was flat. It was all from a flood. And this is from this hand. This is one of the bones. Now, I told you, bones can turn to stones. All right, and in the inside, you see on the inside of the bone, the outside of the bone is right here. You can see a difference, totally different than the inside, which was the marrow, really gooey stuff. The outside was a whole different chemistry, so it changed, it substituted with other stuff and became a different substance in the inside. That's what's called an abrupt transition. Whenever you see an abrupt transition from one type of stone to another, it's primarily, usually there's a membrane involved. Now, so here we have the bone. This is blood. This is actually muscle tissue. And it ran into tendon. Now look at this, how cool this is. This is where it broke the bone. On the other side though, the muscle's still weaved in together. You see it? You see how the muscle's still weaved in together here around that bone? And this is all blood. This right here, now you have to get it in the correct light. I'm going to put it like this. I might have to put a little moisture on it. No, you should be able to see that. This coming right off of here is a tendon, and that's one of those tendons that does that, coming off the side of the finger. So you can pull it this way, pull it that way. There's like two, well, they run both sides. That's the center of the tendon right there. You have to look at these things in the right light, and it always helps, well, not always, but most always helps to put a little moisture on it. You can see things highlighted a little better. You can see now this is a tendinous material, and right in the center, that little ball in the center, is where the center of the tendon was. See these straps of tendon? And that ball right there in the center is where the center of the tendon started to go to muscle, because you can't just have a tendon, you have to have a muscle to pull it. And that's where the muscle starts. That's the abrupt transition. And then again, that's the muscle fibers wrapped around a bone ball, which is here. Alright, so this ran off of this guy's hand, I believe, out this direction. I can't, yeah, it ran out this direction because these are running this way in us. One on each side. Alright, so this is literally right there on my finger, right in between those two, right in there somewhere. One to go this way, and if the other one was here, which it is not, it's all gone. But if it was there, it would come, one would go this way and one would go this way. And I believe that's probably was a central finger. It could have been a small finger, it could have been a large, well, it wouldn't be a right hand side small. Well, I don't know. You understand what I'm talking about. if we ever start to investigate this stuff, we can get into the details, because I have most of the details already figured out. It's just examining them carefully and then seeing really what exists around the world, because this isn't even big, and this was DNA tested. And like I say, that one finger was CAT scan. It didn't give a ton of detail, but I could very easily see the details in it. But anyway, let me show you the big finger. You don't even have to have this CAT scan, and I don't think you could. It weighs about 600 pounds. All right, what I want you to pay close attention to is this grip skin, because this is the key right now. I'm going to show you my big fingertip. All right, this is my big boy. This is like 3 feet long, front to back. This is actually the fingernail. Take your time, look at it slowly. Follow that fingernail where it is. This piece right here I broke off, and I have it right here on the desk. I'm going to show it to you in a second. I broke it off so I could get down into where the blood is, because you can't take blood off the surface of this type of stone. I'll show you what this is. They would call this sarsen stone. It's very, very hard. Now, remember I showed you this one? And I said it was a distal phalange, same thing as that. Oh, and it's extremely eroded. Now, remember the blood supplies? There they are right there. Those are the 2 blood supplies, the vein and the artery. Now, the bone is going to be inside here, and it's just totally obscured, because this is literally perfect. This is almost flawless. This little disc here is what bumps into your next bone so that they rock smoothly and they don't tear the bone apart. It's a nice cushion. So what do we see? We see a fingernail. We see the padding that is between all bones in your fingers. We see the blood supplies. We see the architecture of the fingernail, and then we see a piece missing. I broke that piece off of there. It was there, and this thing was absolutely flawless. And when it came off with fingerprints. Now don't forget, I told you to look carefully at that grip skin. Now watch this. All right, this is the piece I chipped off of there. My thumb is the same size as one of these fingerprint ridges, just like you have in your fingerprints. Now, if you ever looked at it with a microscope, you would see there's little sweat pores. Boom, 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 boom. You know how your fingers can get sweaty? Well, that comes through this layer, which is called, this is, when I talked about collagens before, collagens are the rubbery, gooey stuff that's in your body, but there's also keratins. And I believe this chemistry here it's virtually the same, I think. It's got to be very close. But I think there might be some iridium in this, because this is what I talked about, is the grip skin was different than any other part of your body. It's the only, well, no, I shouldn't say that, because your elbows and there's other places that have keratinized skin. Let's just get past that. If everything boiled in the ocean at the same time and there was a layer of iridium, could it have come from this kind of skin? I think so. I'd like to see the chemistry, and I have one right here. Here it is. This is the piece right here. And this right here is where it went into the fingernail. That fingernail sat right in there of that big thing. And then there's the fingerprints. Now, you see it come off right, just like it was glued on there. Right? This is the thickness of the skin that was on this guy's finger. The thickness of the grip skin. That's the heavy duty skin. That's this stuff. Listen to this. That's hard, baby. That is hard, hard, hard rock. Now, is there iridium in there? If there is, that would account for the Alvarez layer, which was iridium. And again, worldwide, same thing as the Triassic. You see this? Widespread, elevated iridium in upper Triassic, lower Jurassic layers. They think this is just sediment. Well, a lot of it is, because it was a fallout from the Great Flood. But the iridium had that layer of, I believe it was grip skin. Because I don't know where iridium comes from. But iridium is kind of, they think it came from an asteroid which hit Earth, and that's what caused all this havoc, and they think it was 65 million years ago, and all kinds of stories about it, theories, which I'm showing that this was almost an impact from Venus. Now, was the iridium from Venus? That is also a possibility, because it all happened at the same time. But I'm starting to think it was from the chemistry of the bodies that were here on Earth. If it was worldwide, and well, it could have been from, well, they say it comes from outer space, so it could have been from Venus, who knows? But I would like to test my theory of, was it from the grip skin of creatures today? It's got to be iridium. Iridium comes from somewhere. You know, it may cook off coming in from outer space. That's also a very possible thing, because chemistry changes depending upon temperature and obviously what it's mixed with, the other types of chemistry. And it finds a point of stability at some point, at some temperature, at some pressure, with some partners. Basically, that's what happens. So it could be either way. It could be from this grip skin, which I originally thought, and now I'm starting to think it might have been from space, because they link iridium to space. Okay, iridium is very, very rare, and they claim it has no known biological role. However, I don't believe that. I believe it's made to be tough. Listen to this. It's used for contacts in spark plugs. It's high metal melting point and low reactivity. It's tough as hell. Iridium has no known biological role and has low toxicity, so it's in your body, doesn't bother you. Iridium is one of the rarest elements on Earth. However, they found it in this layer right on top of what I'm saying is the flood layer. And I believe it might have come from now either biologically from grip skin. That's where I'm going with it, because grip skin's tough and iridium's tough. Or it could have cooked off coming in from space. All right, I have done all this work long, long ago, but I do understand that temperature, pressure, and different pH make absolutely unbelievable differences in the outcome of the final product and in how quick it reacts and all that business. And I did all this stuff, and all the, you know, a lot of this actually ended up being nonsense, but it all worked out to become electricity. Everything that happens, heat and cold, is nothing more than electric charges. Basically, that's what it is. And I came to that conclusion at the end. All power, whether it's taking power in or taking power out, it's electric. You're either giving up electrons or you're taking electrons in. And you're pushing electrons or you're sucking electrons. And the black particles suck the electrons and the white particles push the other electrons away. The blacks suck everybody together. The blacks and the blacks go together. The whites stay away from each other, but they congeal around the black core. So I had all this stuff done many, many, many years ago. So it ain't bragging if it's true, and it's true. All right, I went in search of a specific area that had high concentrations of the chemistry we're talking about. And I found this particular area right here. Now that is not just accidental hills and valleys. That's chemistry. Whenever you see an abrupt transition like this over here, that didn't just happen accidentally. That is an abrupt transition. There's runoff of something being reabsorbed here, or something's going on. But I'm telling you, there is chemistry coming out of your earlobes here. And I understand this because I see this all the time, where these extremely intricate little dragon-y looking things, they're not dragons, they're organ systems. And something in there was able to absorb something coming through here. That's all I can think of, is this was like a digestive system area. And it looks strange, doesn't it? Look at that. Look at that. Boy, that does look like some kind of snake. But this is biology. And now, here's the key. Hold on one second.